The champagne flute in my hand trembled slightly as my daughter-in-law's words hung in the air like poison gas. "Poor people only deserve cheap gifts, Don." She said it with such casual cruelty, as if discussing the weather, her perfectly manicured hand waving dismissively at the modest presents piled under our Christmas tree. I'm Don Mitchell, 73 years old, and I've seen a lot in my time on this earth. I fought in Vietnam, built a construction company from nothing, raised 3 sons after my wife passed, and thought I'd developed pretty thick skin. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for the venom that sometimes dripped from Caroline's lips. My youngest son Marcus stood beside her, his face flushed with embarrassment, unable to meet my eyes. The rest of the family had gone silent. My other sons, Thomas and James, exchanged uncomfortable glances with their wives. My grandchildren, ranging from 5 to 15, looked confused at the sudden tension crackling through the room like electricity before a storm. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" I set down my glass carefully, giving her a chance to walk it back. Caroline tossed her highlighted hair and doubled down. "I said what I said, Don. My cousin Emily, she works as a teacher's aide, makes barely $30,000 a year, and had the audacity to give my children those dollar store toys." She gestured toward 2 brightly wrapped packages that my 7-year-old grandson Tyler was clutching protectively. "It's embarrassing. If you can't afford to give decent gifts, don't give anything at all." The room felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out of it. I took a slow breath, remembering what my late wife Helen used to tell me, "Don, count to 10 before you speak when you're angry. Count to 20 if you're furious." I made it to about 7. "Caroline," I began, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest, "I think you might want to reconsider what you just said." She rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes at me. "Oh, please, don't give me that 'it's the thought that counts' speech. We live in the real world. Emily makes poverty wages, and she should stick to giving cards with maybe a $5 bill inside, not pretending she can afford real gifts." "Mom, please," Marcus whispered, his hand on her arm. She shook him off. "What? Why is everyone acting like I'm the villain here? I'm just being honest. Cheap gifts are an insult. They're basically saying, I don't value you enough to spend real money on you." My grandson Tyler's lower lip was trembling. At 7 years old, he didn't fully understand the conversation, but he knew something was very wrong. The toy car and stuffed elephant from his beloved cousin Emily, who had spent hours playing with him at the last family reunion, were being mocked. That's when something inside me shifted. "Well, Caroline," I said, standing up from my armchair, "I'm glad you've made your position so clear, because I've been thinking about how to distribute my estate, and you've just helped me make a very important decision." The room went even quieter, if that was possible. My sons all knew I'd been working with my lawyer recently, updating my will. I'd done well in life, sold my construction company 5 years ago for a comfortable sum, owned my house outright, had solid investments. There was enough to make a real difference to my children and grandchildren. Caroline's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, walking toward the Christmas tree, "that I'm going to teach you something about the value of gifts, and people, and basic human decency." I knelt down, my knees protesting a bit, and picked up the presents from Emily. Tyler reluctantly handed them over, his eyes wide. I carefully unwrapped them. The toy car was indeed from a dollar store, but it had been modified. Emily had hand-painted racing stripes on it in Tyler's favorite colors, blue and gold. She'd added tiny stickers of his initials. The stuffed elephant wore a little vest that she'd sewn herself, with a patch that said, "Tyler's Adventure Buddy." For my granddaughter Sophie, Emily had given a journal. Not expensive, but every single page had a hand-drawn border, and the first page had a beautiful watercolor painting of Sophie's name surrounded by her favorite flowers, sunflowers. Emily had written, "For all your stories, dreams, and adventures. Love, Cousin Emily." I held them up for everyone to see. "Emily makes $30,000 a year," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "That means after taxes, she takes home maybe $23,000. Her rent is $12,000 a year. That leaves $11,000 for everything else: food, utilities, transportation, student loans, healthcare. That's less than $1,000 a month for everything. I looked directly at Caroline, and yet she spent probably 6 hours creating these personalized gifts. 6 hours of her precious free time after working full-time at a job where she helps shape young minds, making sure these gifts were perfect for my grandchildren. Caroline's face was reddening, but whether from shame or anger, I couldn't tell. My wife Helen, I continued, grew up dirt poor. Her family was so broke that one Christmas, her mother knitted her a doll from scraps of yarn. That doll had mismatched button eyes and a crooked smile. Helen kept it her entire life. It sat on our dresser for 40 years. When she was dying, she held that doll and cried, talking about how much love her mother had stitched into every strand. I turned to Tyler and Sophie. Your great-grandma Helen would have loved Emily's gifts. She would have recognized them for what they are, treasures made with love. Oh, come on, Caroline scoffed. This is so melodramatic. I just think people should. Be quiet. I rarely raise my voice, but when I do, people listen. I'm not finished. I walked to my study and returned with a folder. I've been working on my estate planning, as some of you know. I've decided to establish a trust fund for each of my grandchildren, $200,000 each for education and getting started in life. I saw Caroline's eyes light up. She had 2 children. That was $400,000. However, I continued, I'm also establishing the Helen Mitchell Memorial Scholarship, $1 million to fund full scholarships for teachers' aides who want to become full teachers. People like Emily, who give everything they have to help children, but can't afford the additional education they need. Caroline's mouth fell open. You're giving $1 million to strangers instead of your own family. I'm giving it to people who understand the value of things, I said. People who would never look at a handmade gift and call it cheap. People who measure worth in kindness, not price tags. Marcus finally found his voice. Dad, I'm sorry, Caroline didn't mean. Yes, she did, I interrupted gently. And that's the problem, son. She meant every word. I turned back to Caroline. As for you, you're not wrong about everything. You're right that gifts reflect how we value people. Emily's gifts show she values my grandchildren enormously, enough to invest her time, her creativity, her heart. Your philosophy shows that you value them only as much as dollars spent, and that tells me everything I need to know about your values. This is insane, Caroline stood up, shaking. You're punishing me for being honest. No, I said sadly. I'm showing you consequences. You see, I was also planning to give each of my sons $100,000 outright, but I've decided to add a condition. Anyone who agrees with your statement about poor people and cheap gifts will donate their $100,000 to the scholarship fund instead. The room was silent. Thomas and James immediately spoke up. We don't agree with it, Dad. That was cruel. Marcus looked at his wife, then at me, his face anguished. Dad, I don't agree with what Caroline said, but she's my wife. I'm not asking you to choose, I told him. I'm asking what you believe. In your heart, son, do you think Emily's gifts were cheap, unworthy? Marcus looked at the hand-painted car, at the journal with its watercolor cover. He looked at his children, and then at Emily's photo on the mantel from our last reunion, her arm around Tyler, both of them laughing. No, he said quietly, Emily's gifts were beautiful. They were made with love. They're worth more than anything money can buy. Caroline made a sound of disgust. You're all insane. I'm leaving. That's your choice, I said, but understand this. I grew up poor. I know what it's like to give gifts you can't really afford, to stretch every dollar, to try to make something from nothing. The fact that you can't see the value in that you'd mock someone for trying, that breaks my heart. Caroline grabbed her purse. Fine, keep your money, old man, we don't need it. She stormed out. Marcus hesitated, looked at his children, then at me. I should. Go talk to your wife, I said. But Marcus, think about what kind of values you want your children to learn. Think about what your mother would say. After he left, my other sons gathered around me. Thomas put his hand on my shoulder. Dad, that was intense. Your mother would have handled it better, I admitted. She always knew the right words. No, James said firmly. Mom would have been proud of you. She hated cruelty in any form. We spent the rest of the evening quietly. My grandchildren asked questions, and we talked about the importance of kindness, about how wealth isn't just measured in money, about how the best gifts come from the heart. Later, after everyone had gone home, I called Emily. She was shocked when I told her what happened. Don, I never meant to cause trouble, she said, her voice small. You didn't cause anything, I assured her. You gave beautiful gifts. The kids love them, and I want you to know you're exactly the kind of person my Helen was. Generous, creative, kind. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less than. 3 months later, Marcus and Caroline separated. I won't say my speech was the only reason, but Marcus told me it opened his eyes to patterns he'd been ignoring. Caroline had been making comments for years about his brother who was a social worker, about their neighbor who worked retail, about people who chose lower-paying careers. I realized, Marcus told me over coffee, that I'd been so focused on keeping peace that I'd lost sight of what kind of person I was becoming. What kind of father? Mom didn't raise us to value people by their bank accounts. The Helen Mitchell Memorial Scholarship launched last fall. Emily was our first recipient. She's now working on her teaching credential while still working full-time. She sends me pictures of the kids she works with, their smiling faces, their artwork, their achievements. And every Christmas, my grandchildren still treasure those cheap gifts from Emily, the hand-painted car, the watercolor journal. They're displayed in places of honor in their rooms, worth more than any expensive toy because they were made with love. That's a lesson Caroline never learned, but my grandchildren, they understand perfectly. The best gifts, the most valuable things in life, can't be bought. They're created with time, with care, with love, and that's worth more than all the money in the world.